And tonight on the Daily Wrap, the president's legacy takes a big hit after his prize trade deal is shot down. Find out why the so-called party of no can't be blamed by Mr. Obama this time. The GOP cast their vote against ever holding an Iowa straw poll again. We'll tell you why. And do you think it's a problem for the NAACP if its leader of a certain chapter just happens to be, I don't know, white? We discuss all of that, plus potluck and yay and nay. This is the Daily Wrap, live from New York City. And welcome to the show, everybody. As you can see, Rick Unger back in action tonight.
Missed you guys last night.
Yeah.
I did.
And we're feeling well. You had the SARS, the Ebola. What happened exactly?
You don't want to know. I had a tooth pulled and it really messed me up.
Oh, man.
So it's part of growing up.
The worst pain there is.
Part of growing up. But I'm here tonight.
Yes,
ready to go.
We are glad you're back. And joining you is conservative radio host and blogger Stacy Washington from St. Louis.
Hey, boys.
How are you?
I'm well.
You're liking New York so far.
Yeah, but it's not my first merry-go-round, so.
Okay, not your first
We may have to
rodeo.
just keep you here then.
Outstanding.
I like it here.
Well,
I
we
rode the
like having
subway
you here.
today. Oh, my
That's
goodness.
right.
Yeah, it was cold down there, I'm sure.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
let's get to the daily download.
On this vote, the ayes are 126, the nays are 302. The motion is not adopted. On this vote,
Yes, and the president's trade deal is on a fast track to nowhere. As you just heard, Democrats handing Mr. Obama a stinging defeat, rejecting a key part of the bill, meaning the entire measure can't advance. Most Republicans voted against it too. In an unusual role reversal, Speaker John Boehner sided with the president, while Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi openly defied the Democrat-in-chief.
And we want to make darn sure that there's less authority for the president and more authority for the American people. That's what this bill does. It's a means to an end, and the end is more free trade that's good for our economy and good for our country.
I will be voting today to slow down the fast track to get a better deal for the American people. Bigger paychecks, better infrastructure, help the American people fulfill the American dream.
Now, as you could expect, the White House is blowing this off as a procedural snafu. Republicans are vowing to try again next week. How big of a setback is this for the president, Mr. Unger?
It's hard to say. I mean, it's clearly a setback. We should keep in mind it doesn't mean that the trade deal itself is dead. It could mean that fast track is dead, which means that Congress will have a lot more input into what the final deal is. As you know, I've taken a position all along of I don't know if I'm for this or against this.
No one knows.
Because no, I'm not allowed to read it. And until I am, I'm not going to have an opinion. So I'm not all that displeased that this took place.
Stacey.
I'm loving it. We get to finally see in this time-space continuum, Stacy on the right agree with Nancy Pelosi. Oh my gosh, I hope a pig doesn't fly through one of these screens.
Yeah.
I have to say, I really am disappointed in how the Republicans are shooting themselves in the foot by spending time trying to fight for something that the Democrats are actually against that they shouldn't be for.
Well, there is also, we should point out, a great lesson in all of this for the president. Comes a little bit late, I'm afraid. He has not done a great job throughout his term of working with Congress. You know, I'm the first in line to say, yes, the Republicans don't ever seem to want to work with him. But you know what? This wasn't a case of the Republicans turning their back on the president. It was a case of his own party. And it happens because he doesn't spend the time you need to spend with your party to build those relationships. You can't show up at the baseball game last night and then show up on the Hill for 1 hour this morning and think all is well.
Yeah.
You know,
it was like a booty call.
He's never put the time in.
He came in late. I
Yeah.
mean, he hasn't been there for years now. He doesn't spend time with them. He doesn't return their calls. They don't eat dinner together. They don't golf together. These are people that they haven't seen this guy in years, except from behind the podium at the White House.
I read a great book, Bob Woodward's, called The Price of Politics.
Yes.
And it talked about how President Obama really is a recluse. And not just with talking to Republicans. He doesn't really like to talk to anybody, really, on the Hill. And this finally came to fruition with this particular deal. Rick, what I want to know is what does this do for his legacy? And what I mean is we counted off 3 things that could go wrong in the next 3 weeks.
This
that could
was
have a
one.
severe.
Right.
Yeah, this was one. Iran deal going south is 2. Obamacare struck down by the Supreme Court, at least a big chunk of it, 3. So this is 1 down, 2 to go.
Legacy's a funny thing because you don't know what was going to turn out good and what wasn't. A lot of people are not happy with this trade deal without even knowing what it is, because there is the fear that it will cost Americans jobs. People tend to look at the deal we made in North America some years ago, the Clinton administration made, NAFTA, and we still don't know to this day if NAFTA was responsible for job loss or not. So some will say, well, yeah, we lost jobs, it had something to do with NAFTA. Others will say this was going to happen anyhow. Nobody really knows. So it's very hard to know with trade deals if they are a good thing or a bad thing.
Stacey, are you surprised that the president pushed this deal when obviously unions were against it, when unions helped get him elected, that's his core base? It's surprising. The whole thing is upside down.
Well, it's upside down, but it doesn't surprise me at all because I've been watching this president alienate groups that had previously been major constituencies for him, the black community for one. He's done a number of things that have angered them over the years, but they remain loyal. So I think he feels as if he's kind of a Teflon Don and he can kind of ram these things through. But it's unfortunate because there's an opportunity for him at every turn, at every major piece of legislation or things like this trade deal, for him to make a true lasting part of his legacy, and he seems to be going about it in the wrong way. Not letting us know what's in it means we're not going to be for it, and that's a huge chunk of the American people, regardless of party. We like transparency.
But again, to be fair, it's absolutely standard operating procedure on trade deals not to share it for all the same reasons that nobody wants to negotiate something out in the open. The problem is going to be, will we have enough time to go through it once it's completed? With the fast track, I seriously doubt any of us, those of us who do this for a living, we're going to get to go through 4,000 pages before this thing was put into effect. There are elements to the trade deal that, from what I know about it, make sense. We know that this will make it easier for us to sell our goods overseas. That's important. On the other hand, it's the jobs thing. If we can be sure that this is not going to cost American jobs, I think you'll see Democrats supporting the trade deal. Everybody wants to see more trade overseas. If we can't be sure about that, then this may never happen now.
Stacey, do you think after 2014 and the president lost the Senate, or his party did anyway, then everybody was talking about he was already a lame duck at that point because he doesn't have Congress and he doesn't have the Senate, and how's he going to be able to do anything? And he shocked a lot of people, and maybe for people like Rick was like, wow, go President Obama, because he was still very proactive, he was defiant, he was going to get things done whether people liked it or not. Does this now make him, maybe not this deal, but let's say one of the other 2 things we talked about, Obamacare or the Iran deal, does this make him officially a lame duck?
Well, this president enjoys the use of the pen and the phone. And so then after the pen and the phone have been used, you have to wait for lawsuits to make their way up to the Supreme Court. And so it means that he's able to claim victory pretty quickly by simply issuing an executive order. I think he's going to continue to do that. Regardless of what the Supreme Court decides on Obamacare, he's going to continue to plow through because he does have an agenda to complete, and he doesn't really see Congress as someone he can work with.
Although he's already, the whole pen and the phone thing was really applied to immigration, what he did. And that's already been pretty well stopped by the circuit court down in the 5th District.
It was kind of delicious to see how they smacked that down. And then he continued on with it, and they smacked it down again.
Were you surprised that Hillary Clinton never weighed in on this one way or another? She will.
She will, at the right time.
At the right time.
And depending on what happens.
Hillary's numbers are down, and so weighing in on things is a double whammy for her. It's a two-edged sword because she's losing among her demographics. She's got the solid warriors stepping away from her, waiting for someone else to come in. And we all know what happens when Hillary gets in front of the camera. People realize how much they don't like her.
Let me ask you when you're done.
She's in a tough spot on this because she was supportive of the trade deal
in
earlier,
2012.
And now it looks like it may not be the best thing to do if you're running for president as a Democrat. Absolutely. So she's in a tough spot. Best thing to do when you're in a tough spot is try not to say anything.
Right.
This is your first time here. This will be a very quick answer. So we talk about, okay, Hillary's support is soft, right? It's weak and it's dropping. Then we always say, but who's the alternative? So who would you see as an alternative? Not current field, but who could step in? And everybody gives me that same look.
There
is
none.
The
bench is empty.
Biden?
Hillary?
No. I get emails from Draft Biden. It's like a committee that they're trying to drum up support to draft Joe Biden to run.
Really?
That would be a dream for us. This
Actually,
guy can't even talk without making mistakes.
Actually, he can. He's actually, he would be a wonderful candidate, but he won't be the candidate.
Okay, so coming up next, another GOP candidate is embracing Caitlyn Jenner into the party. We'll tell you who next. Keep it right there.